Welcome back to Fantasy Football RPG, your go-to source for all things fantasy football. Join us for expert analysis, top strategies, and the latest insights to help you dominate your league. Let's level up your game and dive into the nitty-gritty. Without further ado, let's get into action.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day you're listening to it. This is another episode of Fantasy Football RPG. It might not be draft season, but we're making it draft season. Thank you, Ash. My dogs are very excited to talk about some 2025 wide receiver prospect rankings. Evan, how fired up are you for draft season to be here?
And you know I'm always here. College football season is my jam. It is winding down, which is really unfortunate because, that's usually where I make a little bit of money,
Yep.
on the side here, just reaming some college football plays. So NFL, not so much. But, yeah, I'll stick to my college game and absolutely love my Saturdays going out golfing in the morning and then sitting down and watching college football the rest of the day.
God, it's the American dream. All right, today we're going to go through our top 5 wide receiver prospects for the 2025 NFL Draft. If you guys want to catch 6 through 10, you want to catch sleepers, those are going to be released later. So please like, subscribe, hit the bell, make sure that you're here. But let's start off with number 5. We have Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. Evan, tell me a little bit about Trey Harris.
Yeah, so I think I have Trey Harris a little bit higher than you do, Mike. I'm definitely a fan. I've watched a lot of Ole Miss, trying to see if Jackson Dart's going to be able to improve his draft stock enough to be somewhat relevant. Shocker? Probably not. But maybe. Trey Harris is a very good wide receiver. Measurable-wise, we're talking 210 pounds, give or take, somewhere around there. About 6'3", playing for Ole Miss down there in the Kiffin offense. 5th year, did transfer before coming to Ole Miss. And he was born in 2020. 2002.
2022.
2002. Yeah.
That breakout for him would be electric. So I think what's interesting about Trey Harris, the age snobs are going to be all over him because of the 5th year indication. But look, he broke out as a junior. You can probably say he broke out as a sophomore, but he's playing at Louisiana Tech. Breaking there is a little bit different. So truly breaks out he reclassified as a sophomore, but really his 3rd year, 65 receptions, 935 yards, enters the transfer portal, finds himself at Ole Miss. As a senior, there was a chance he could have declared last year, like 54 receptions, 985 yards. But now, only 7 games in the season, he's already topping those numbers. There's a lot of buzz about him maybe going first round. There's a lot of guys that like him a lot. I have him at wide receiver 7. You have him at wide receiver 4. I think the disconnect there, I try to chase either toolsy guys or guys that have this one clear trump card. Like, I don't think he has that trump card that he's going to have at the NFL level. Like, yes, he has strong hands. Yes, he's an okay route runner. Yes, he's an okay separator. Like, he's pretty fine at a lot of things, but he doesn't do anything exceptionally well. Do you think that's a fair evaluation, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, what's going to help him is the fact that he has the prototypical body size for a wide receiver that the NFL looks for, especially in an X. Great catch radius, really good body control, catching balls on the sideline, where Dart's putting it actually on the sideline itself. And Trey Harris is able to use his body to be able to go get it, plucking balls out of the air when he's running across the middle. Love seeing that. I have that. Yeah, you hit the nail right there. Not a great athlete, but he's good enough to get by. I will say one of the biggest concerns that I have is the Ole Miss offense historically just doesn't make their wide receivers do a ton. So their route tree tends to be a little limited coming into the league. So Trey Harris is definitely one of those guys that I'm not going to be expecting a ton from the first year in fantasy. But he's definitely a guy that I'd be looking for a 2nd, 3rd year breakout. And I have him currently going in the 2nd round of the NFL draft.
Yeah. Listen, if you guys are listening to this and you feel very strongly that Trey Harris is, the second coming of DK Metcalf, if you feel strongly that he is trash, let us know. Leave a comment. Like, we're all trying to learn here together, and we're just excited to bring you some names that you should be watching. Next up at wide receiver 4, we have Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. I had him at wide receiver 6. Evan, you had him at wide receiver 5. So technically, he was pretty close to tying with Trey Harris. If my math is right, I think he tied. But tell me a little bit about Egbuka.
Yeah, Ibuka. So we're talking the Ohio State wide receiver that a lot of people thought was going to come out last year. He ended up surprising a lot of people. Going back to school, fourth-year wide receiver, was playing as a true freshman for Ohio State, which anybody who watches Ohio State knows how much of a feat that is. Having been wide receiver U recently, maybe you can say LSU's wide receiver U at this point. But once again, natural route runner, polished short and intermediate routes, which I absolutely love. He's going to be a quarterback's best friend, is willing to do the dirty work right over the middle of the field, gets in and out of his breaks with ease and efficiency. You don't see him really lose too much, and he's able to shake defenders, especially everybody inside, able to find the holes in the zone. Definitely love that. Just watching him catch, though, is kind of weird to me. Yeah, it definitely looks like he kind of T-Rex arms a lot of things,
Correct.
which is quite frustrating. Former top five or 5-star recruit, so top recruit, and looking like he's going to be a top 50 NFL pick.
A lot of buzz. So all of these guys in the top 5, and even I think like 6 and 7, there's first round buzz. I think there's 2 guys that are clearly top 5 to top 10 picks, and then there's a list of 5 dudes that maybe they're going in the first round, maybe they're going top 50, but there's a couple of guys we need to keep an eye on. The catch point concerns are real, and maybe he turns into Deontay Johnson, that he separates all the time but just gets hit in the chest and can't catch the ball. I think his best role at the next level is probably as a team's 1B. Like, he's never truly going to be the 1A you're running the offense through him, but he's a very good player, very good separator. Excited to see what he does. Next up, got Luther Burden. I had him as wide receiver 2 because we're going to talk about who ended up being our consensus wide receiver 2. Evan Newton was wide receiver 3. Tell me about the Mizzou letdown.
Yeah, Missouri, for anybody that has been watching them, they were ranked in the top 25 for a very long time, longer than most people thought that they probably should be. He was born late in 2003. So he's a little bit younger comparatively to some of these other wide receivers that we previously talked about. 5'11", 208. When you look at him, you say, oh, yeah, like that guy's clearly over 200. He is compact. He runs hard when he catches the ball. He is supposed to be a yak monster running through arm tackles and being able to take on linebackers. He's a playmaker after the catch. At least he was last season. A little bit less this season. Definitely runs with some good acceleration, good burst, which is able to help him get off the line. I think he's a move wide receiver at the next level, a guy that you're trying to get mismatches on, a guy that you're trying to move in motions all across, primarily a slot wide receiver. So I think this is going to be the big difference that we see between Ibuka and Burden and then the other 2 wide receivers that we're going to be talking about here. It's the difference between slot and being an outside wide receiver. Quarterback play definitely regressed. Cook took a step back this past season. But at the same time, he's explosive. Burden's still explosive. Honestly, watching it kind of reminds me of Percy Harvin when he was at Florida.
I could see it. I was busy looking up the snap percentage for Burden. So he, after being a freshman, he played most of his snaps out wide. Then they were like, whoa, what if we put him in the slot? And he's had an over 80% slot percentage the last couple of years. I think what's really tough and why we're feeling a little bit down on him, like, dude, he had 3.3 yards per route run as a sophomore. He was going to regress. Like, we need to come to terms with that. He's still over. He's at 2.2 right now. The drop percentage is low. It's just the missed tackles forced, interesting enough, has gone up. The yards after the catch have gone down. So they're not getting the ball in space. You're not seeing as many wow plays. You're seeing a lot of he has to break 2 tackles because he's not getting the ball where he wants to get it. I still think he's going to be a first-round pick. Like, some coach is going to watch that sophomore film and be like, I'm getting him on my team. But I can see the concerns. Let's talk about somebody that the Dynasty community should be very concerned about. Travis Hunter, wide receiver 2. I have him as wide receiver 3. I thought about moving him even lower. You have him as wide receiver 2. If we are purely evaluating Travis Hunter, the wide receiver, he is wide receiver 2, if not in contention skill-wise for the wide receiver 1 in the class. What's he playing at the next level? What's he playing?
So I think a team is going to take him. They're going to give him the chance to try both sides out. Ultimately, who makes more money in the NFL, Mike? Last time I checked, it was wide receivers.
Yep. But the person that can play both of them can probably reset the market for corners.
Probably could. Let me remember here. Defensive players tend to complain about the pass interference calls.
Yep.
Yeah, makes it a little bit easier to play wide receiver. So, yeah, 185 right now. I think he's at 185 because of his conditioning, because he's trying to stay lean to be able to stay and not have to drag a bunch of weight around. I think he could easily add 15 pounds to his frame, though.
There's room.
Looking at his frame, 100%. Totally agree. There is room. And if he focuses on only playing wide receiver and he jumps up to 200 pounds at the NFL level, that is huge. Like now you're hitting another target metric. You're already talking about a guy that has incredible flexibility at the catch point. His contortionist style of catching that he can do is just insane. Like it is things that we just don't see. His instincts and ball tracking.
Yep.
I mean, it's that of a center fielder, a Gold Glove center fielder.
Yep.
So all of these things, nonstop motor. Absolutely love that. Former number 1 overall recruit. Absolutely love that. Historically, the hit rate on number 1 overall recruits is pretty good. And I think he's improved each season. You care to disagree with that?
I don't disagree with any of those things. The only thing that I am concerned about and that I disagree with is that you can play corner full time and then play wide receiver part of the time, like have little packages built for you. If you play receiver full time, they're not just going to run you out there and be like, oh, by the way, cover Justin Jefferson. Like, by the way, these are your assignments. So if I'm an NFL coach, the way that I would employ him, I know nobody cares because I'm running a fantasy football podcast, but you're going to have him play corner. And then you're going to have a small subset of packages where you bring him out there, use him as wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, get him the ball in space, like use the athlete that he is and let him play both ways. That makes his dynasty value very tricky. So he's either going to be the biggest value or the biggest overdrafted player in the entire draft. And we won't find out until probably like week 10 of his rookie year. And even then it might be not sure.
It'll be incredibly interesting because typically when you have the two-way players, which is incredibly rare, two-way players in baseball, typically they'll announce what position they're trying to get them to go for. So if they're a pitcher, third baseman, they'll say third baseman. So I'm hoping that there is some corollary here where whatever team drafts Travis Hunter says cornerback Travis Hunter or wide receiver Travis Hunter.
Evan, I have bad news.
Not athlete.
Announced today, Travis Hunter plans on declaring as, quote, two-way player Travis Hunter. So when he gets drafted, he plans to get drafted as Jacksonville Jaguars select number 1 overall two-way player Travis Hunter.
It's fine. He'll have a 99 RAS score, or, 9.99 RAS score in both corners and wide receivers. It'll be fine.
Yep. Let's wrap up with the last one. Tell us about Tet McMillan, the love of your life.
Oh man, Tet McMillan, baby. That is a heartthrob of a wide receiver right there. We got youth on our side. We got being the clear-cut number 1 first read at almost every single play for his quarterback. When his quarterback's in trouble, let's chuck it up. Tet's down there somewhere type of mentality. And he goes up at 6'5" to high point the football, 212, which you think about that, 6'5", 212, maybe a little lanky, but regardless, he's got a big enough frame. His wingspan is crazy. Teams are going to absolutely love that. He's a mismatch nightmare. He's going to be taller than most corners in the league, if not all corners in the league.
All of them.
So, you're definitely going to be looking at that. as a mismatch nightmare in the red zone, which what do we love? Touchdowns in fantasy football. He has been moved all over the field. He's run routes inside between the numbers. He's run routes outside the numbers. Once again, strong hands, absolutely just plucks the ball when Noah Fafita just overshoots him by, 1.5 feet. And he just extends those pterodactyl arms up to just pull the ball out of the air. Most likely top 10 pick. Maybe he ends up slipping outside the top 10, but with the I want to say how thin the wide receiver class is for elite talent, and how starved, and how starved some teams are for wide receiver talent. He should go high.
Yep. I already am putting this into my heart. I'm putting it in my soul. As it stands now, the New England Patriots draft at number 6. For the love of God, pair Ted McMillan with Drake May. It will feed families for generations. I have no notes. Tech McMillan rules. Like, subscribe, come hang out. We're going to go through all of the wide receivers that you need to know for this draft season. Evan, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure as always.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at FFRPGPod and at FFMikeCash with a K. Don't let the goblins get you. See you next week.